Mike Caulfield. I'm Jim Groom. And Mike, what are we doing here? Because this is your idea. I don't want to pretend to take over.
Yeah. So no, please do take over. But the idea is couch to 4K. Uh, it's a title no one has for a podcast, and it I don't know what it's going to be. We're going to find out what it's going to be. But the idea is just to like get 4K releases and talk about the 4K releases. And the greater goal is to heal the world, Jim, because I do think people should be putting put a little more of their emotion and their effort into watching some good films on some good equipment.
Great. And I like that idea. It's funny. You and I were talking about something else, but you brought up 4Ks and that you're collecting them, and so do I. And I was like, really? You collect DVDs? Because it's pretty rare now for people to collect media, but I hope that kind of current shifts back because there's some real joy in owning some of these. And one of the things I was able, I don't know how you let me, but when you brought up the idea, I was like, I have one I just watched and I loved, and I was wondering if you would watch. And it's a film by Peter Hyams, starring Sean Connery, called Outland. And anyone out there in the studio audience might see this is a beautiful cover of the Blu-ray 4K UHD disc released by Arrow Video, and this is a recent release, I believe, and it's kind of a pretty high-end 4K release for a movie probably that is not as kind of well known. I mean, it's pretty well known, but it kind of you talk about Alien first before you talk about Outland
Oh
or
yeah.
some. It's kind of falls between the cracks a little bit.
Yeah, it was a film that I think I think I've seen it's currently I don't know if it's anywhere on streaming for free, but I think I've seen it pop up on streaming. It's the sort of film that I think unfortunately you'd usually see pop up on Tubi or something like
Yeah,
that, right?
totally.
And you'd end up watching it with commercials and you'd end up watching it with that sort of crappy stream. And I think you develop your idea of what this film is from that, from seeing it either on UHF in the old days and those upper channels on the Square TV, or seeing it on a streaming service. And it's a real shame. And I think we'll talk a little bit about this when we talk about the quality of this release. But it's a visually rich film in an interesting way, and in a way that the resolution on this film really is going to pay off. But I don't want to get too deep into that part before we sort of set the stage with what this movie is, what it's about, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Jim.
Yeah. So Outland is basically a retelling of the classic Western High Noon. So uh, basically, you have a guy who's been sent to the boondocks, which in this case is a space station near some basically mining mineral town, if you will, in space. Kind of more realistic these days than you might imagine. And he's been sent there because he seems to be like not liking the way in which he's having to take orders and the way in which the whole world is going. He's somewhat of an independent spirit. So he's sent here, much like Gary Cooper is in the original High Noon, sent to this town, and this town is all capitulated to this, band of thieves who are coming back into town, and there's a kind of face-off. Well, Peter Hyams took that theme from the Western and put it in space. And the kind of overarching idea here is he's there. He's kind of a nobody in a nobody place. This is where people go and their career is at the end, right? Like they've been ruined. And he realizes that there's major drug trade going on to ensure that the workforce keeps working more productively to keep the numbers up. So they're juking the stats for the corporation, which is Con Am in this position, in this film. And, he basically takes issue with it and he tries to step in and say, this is not right. And obviously, like the 70s films before it, there's a conspiracy going on and it goes
Yep.
right to the
Yep.
top. and
Yeah.
he decides to step into that, and that's where you get the great face-off, like you do in the Western High Noon. And Sean Connery's really awesome in this film, as is his
He's
doctor sidekick. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
She's
So let's talk
wonderful.
about some of the cast of this film, because cast of this film, um, it's not a star-studded cast. You're not looking at Airport 1975 or something here, you know. But it's a pretty solid cast. I mean, you can actually from the very beginning you can start this film and you have the very opening scene. You have a character who's doing the mining or whatever it is they do on this rock, and gets a little bit jittery. Thinks there's ants in his space. Goes a little insane, and basically ends up dying from decompression in a very graphic sort of way. And it's played by John Ratzenberger. Is that right? No, wait, John. What's the guy who plays Cloak and
Ratzenberger.
Dagger?
Absolutely.
Ratzenberger,
You're
right?
right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you see, you have them there. So solid start. Only screen time very limited. Got his lines in to keep his SAG card, but uh, solid start. But then we get to Sean Connery, who's in this. We get to let's pull up the cast. I should have something here that has the
So
cast.
Dr.
Yep.
Lazarus, which is great.
Yep.
So Lazarus, obviously, she's come back from the dead, and she's kind of a half-assed doctor and talks about that, but she's played by the great Francis Sternhagen. And she is just wonderful as a kind of accomplice to um, Sean Connery, because she stands up to Connery. And, Connery as an actor has that presence and he's just
Oh,
overbearing. And she gives it right back at him. And they make a really good duo. And who they're facing off with, though, is maybe my favorite of the film.
yeah. Yeah, continuing on our sitcom pipeline here, they're facing off against a guy named Mark Shepard in the plot. That's played by Peter Boyle, who a lot of people know. I mean, he's done so much, right? So I
He
don't mean to
has.
reduce him to this, but a lot of people know him as the sort of crabby dad on what is the show? Everyone Loves Raymond. Is that
Absolutely,
yeah?
yes.
So we got kind of a and actually Sternhagen plays piece of trivia plays Cliff's mom on a later episode of Cheers on series. So we got the whole sitcom pipeline here. But yeah, you have Peter Boyle. I have to say, when Peter Boyle first appears, I don't know if this is just me, but he's wearing this. He's wearing this cap and this white shirt that and I swear it's the exact same outfit that Rob Reiner is wearing at the beginning of This Is Spinal Tap. And it took me, like the hat and the shirt.
Exactly.
It took me, when he's talking about how he made that little Apple commercial. It took me about 10 minutes to kind of get rid of this is not Rob Reiner, but amazing job for this. And the key with the Mark Shepard character is unlike, so this isn't high noon, right? The joke is this is high moon.
Well done.
Dum bump. So uh, the interesting thing about this occurs not in that Western world where it's like a particularly vicious character coming back to this small town. It really occurs in sort of the extended Alien universe, if you think about it. Like it's
Totally.
very much a corporate world, churning out, just grinding people into dust with their processes as they do the mining and so forth. So this character he has no vendetta against Connery's character. He has, or Connery's character's named O'Neill. No vendetta against him. He runs this. He sort of runs the commerce of this space. They've got a thing going here, a little conspiracy, not to give too much away. Okay, we're probably going to give everything away
We
eventually, so
will.
let's just do
You're
yeah,
right.
yeah. So, they're basically importing drugs and giving them to the workers so they increase their productivity. That's not known by Sean Connery at the beginning, but this character is sitting on that. sitting on that, knows that that's going on, knows that that's how they're keeping the productivity numbers up. And if every once in a while, you know, you get Cliff Clavin going a little crazy from the you know, make believe ants in his spacesuit and exploding, you know, that's okay. And so the shepherd character, the Peter Boyle character, is just corporate,
Yeah.
and he's very calm. He's not. There's no cackling evil guy here. There's just it's just like, hey, you know, this is business.
He's
You know,
even
in
playing golf in his office. He's
he's
that
playing golf.
corporate, you know?
Interesting piece of trivia from the extras there. They have so he plays video golf in his office, and I guess Sean Connery after the production actually ordered one of them for herself. It was one of the first like video golf games they had. But yeah, so yeah, he's playing golf in his office. He's like, hey, it says when Sean Connery gets here, it says, yeah, hey, you know, just let you know, everybody just kind of goes along, gets along,
Yeah.
you know, no
How,
waves,
what's your
you know.
price? Right? Like
Yeah,
essentially
what's your
everyone should
price?
got a price. What's your price?
That's
We'll
right.
figure it out now. And I like your point too in this, and it's why I like the movie so much and wanted to buy it. Because I've rewatched it recently, even apart from the 4K, but when I saw it at actually Millennium Music in Portland, of all places, last year, I
Oh,
was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to pick this up. And what I like it is it feels timely in that. Like, to your
yeah,
point, it's not vendetta. This is just business as usual. And we're going to like make things run more efficiently. We're going to do what we have to do. And, you know, if there's some, you know, bodies as a result, well, we'll deal with that. And, you know, we'll deal with that as we have to. And for me, I found that, you know, a super compelling shift, like you said,
yeah,
in the universe of the 80s. As we
yeah.
start to see what in some ways is becoming a reality for us now is the kind of, you know, corporate nation states, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and the piece on this is, you know, if you think about, you know, Shepard's position, you know, you have these workers here. Their lives are kind of miserable. They take this drug. They work longer hours. They get more money. Um, he's not forcing this drug into them. You
mm,
know, you have a system here that has all these incentives. He's getting the drug. He's supplying the workers are buying it, right? And so his point is the system's the system, and the system's operating.
okay.
And we'll come later to, I think, what is like my favorite part of the movie, and just to preface it for you, favorite part of the movie is definitely the racquetball court scene
So good.
with Lazarus. Just gonna want to get to it now, but we'll get to it after we do a little more exposition here. But all the key points in the film are really about that Connery is coming not into a world that has like a single villain, but the villain here really is the system as a whole. And the people, it's not like when he starts to get going that everybody is going to get behind him and like overthrow the evil. Like no one, no one really wants Connery to make waves. No one, not the
Yeah.
workers, not no one wants him to make waves. And so, getting a little further into the plot, what happens is there's a series of incidents on this in this movie that where people are going crazy in really dangerous ways. And so he's sort of the head cop. He's the sheriff in town, and he sees this stuff and he starts to investigate it. And he takes in the Marion Lazarus character, which is again great character in a really interesting dynamic that is not gendered at all between these two characters in
No,
a fascinating way.
agreed.
But she is the one. The doctor on the ship is the one that he takes into his confidence. And interestingly, the doctor herself says that, you know, she got on a ship. She got one ship ahead of a malpractice suit to get there, and that he shouldn't expect much from her. You know, and this is again this is the sort of the vibe of the movie and the characters is Connery is in that same position. He brought his family there, but obviously trying to get out of something where things have not gone right. She is there. Everybody is on there. That everybody is on that planet because they made a bad decision, right?
And you get a
Like
sense that
every
they've bristled corporate at some point,
yeah,
somewhere along
yeah,
the line, right?
yeah, yeah. And so he takes her into the confidence, his confidence, and then they start to investigate.
Yeah, and that's when they essentially, and it's great because there's these scenes in the lab. You know, she's got her
Yep,
lab coat on, which I loved,
yep,
and he's sitting over her, and like she's trying to read out, and it's cool because the computer's doing a lot of the work for her, and she even
yeah, yeah,
acknowledges that, and it's
yep,
somewhat really kind of relatable. But at the same time, like she starts to come into her own, and she starts to
yep,
help him figure out what's going on. And to your point, this is when they reveal the reality that, these people who are being affected and who have died are on some really intense psychotropic drugs.
yeah,
And this is an issue. And that's where, he goes up against the power structure and starts facing off with Peter Boyle and
yeah,
saying it has to stop.
yeah. And the key point they get to is Sean Connery kind of pushes around, tries to figure out what's going on here. Learns that really everybody's in the take. His cops are on the take, you know, and everybody is in the take just as much as they feel morally comfortable with it. But it's enough. Like the cop that he talks to and finds out he's on the take. It's like, well, do you do anything for Shepard? He's like, no, I don't do anything. I don't do anything against him.
Yeah.
Like it's not that the cop is out there like doing gangland hits on people or whatever. He's not forcing this drug on people. It's just, yeah, everybody just again goes along to get along, and then that's where you have this famous, famous. I don't know if it's famous.
It
One of
might
my
not be
favorite things,
famous.
is this speech of Sean Connery's, and if I could find it, let me see here. If I can find the. He sent me to this. Is it? They sent me here to this pile of shit because they think I belong here. So he's talking to the Marion Lazarus character, and she says, "You know what? Like they're coming to get you. These gangsters are coming to get you. They're going to assassinate you to get you off the ship, stop the investigation. Why don't you just leave with your family? Like leave now." His family, he has a family. His family's like, "Why don't you just leave now?"
Yeah.
But and so she asks him why, why doesn't he? And he says, "They sent me to this pile of shit because they think I belong here. I want to find out if," and then there's that sort of Sean Connery pause. He says, "I want to find out if they're right. There's there's a whole machine that works because everyone does what they're supposed to, and I found out I was supposed to be something I didn't like. That's what's in the program. That's my rotten part in the rotten machine. I
Yeah.
don't like it, so I'm going to find out if they're right." And that's the core of this movie. It's very much a movie that has is about systemic, sort of the mundanity of evil, right? Like
Sure.
and him realizing it's true. Like if he stayed there, he'd only be a small cog in a larger thing. He wouldn't be he himself would not be doing anything that was terribly tragic. But his part in the machine, when he sees the machine as a whole and he sees what his part in the machine is, it's that doesn't that bucks against his moral sense.
Yeah. And he just becomes part of that shitty machine he's talking about. And he doesn't
Yeah, yeah,
want to. And so it's interesting because another sitcom link there. And yeah, you really do. That is the core of this film. And that in many ways, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the 4K extras. We don't want to miss out on them. But like, that's also at the heart of High Noon, right? Everyone
yeah,
betrays him, but he does want to stand up for what's right. He does want to do his job. He does want to believe there's still something to fight for. There's still some worth.
yeah,
Now, completely
yeah,
different universes, and we could go completely different ways, like you said, with the vendetta versus the corporate, like you said, mundanity of all this horror that they're just accepting as, damages for the corporation.
Well, in the High Noon connection is interesting and relevant to there's a production of High Noon going on in London right now. I just know because Billy Crudup is in it, and I just happened to hear Billy Crudup talk about it. But you know, the original High Noon was about blacklisting. It was about the Red Scare, right? And it was about how all of these people that were all friends with all the screenwriters, you know, the minute that screenwriter got targeted, suddenly they're not answering the door, they're not picking up the phone, right? And just kind of in the way that going along to get along
Yeah.
in these things, the idea that, like, you know what, if I keep my head down, someone else is going to get mowed down. Um, you know, comes through in this film, and I think the revival of High Noon also just shows the time. Not getting too political about this because but this is a very political film,
It is.
and there is something timely here about how it doesn't take a lot to have a evil system continue. It takes everybody, essentially. It doesn't take everybody to run out and be evil. It takes a lot of people going along to get along. It takes a lot of people, you know, thinking, you know what, you know, someone else will handle this, you know. And I think when you kind of look at it in that context, or you know, this person here that's being targeted, you know, yes, they're being targeted, but on the other hand, you know, they did kind of ask for a little. I'm not blaming them, but you know, they did kind of bring it on themselves. That's the whole idea of High Noon. Is people keep on saying, well, you know, you put him in jail because you were defending the town, but he seems to be actually more mad at you than us. So
Exactly.
maybe you could, you could stand over there, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
the
and
the social
it's very
fabric
timely.
breaks down, right? Like people
Yeah,
don't want to
yeah,
take responsibility as a community. And,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
interesting because one of the sergeants in Outland who basically betrays
yeah.
Sean Connery is Clark Peters, who with another great connection is Lester Freeman in The Wire. And so this
Oh,
is
right, right.
him like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
20
yeah,
some odd years before then to see Clark Peters, a young Clark Peters. I was like, oh my
yeah.
God, Freeman. Um, so anyway, but your point is a good one. And this might actually, and we could talk more about the film and the plot, and maybe we should. So I'm always happy to do that. But
We should get to the production too, though.
yeah, but
Yeah,
some of the
yeah,
extras where, all of this is kind of laid bare a little bit is one of my favorites, and there's a couple, but one of my favorites is the interview with Peter Hyams.
yeah,
And he's sitting there and he's an older gentleman now, and he seems to be in a very lighted living room. And they came to his
yeah,
house and they're like, let's talk to you. So it's a very
yeah, yeah,
recent discussion.
yeah, yeah,
And he starts talking about some great things. For example, he's like, I didn't want to make a science fiction movie. I
yeah.
wanted to make a Western.
You want to
And
make a western? Yeah,
he's like, I want to make a Western. And they were like, the powers that be, the producers were like, no one's making Westerns anymore. Have you seen Star Wars? Have you seen Alien? Like,
yeah,
the Western is out. You have to do
yeah,
it as a science fiction movie, which is the birth of Outland as a kind of, retake of High Noon. So, and
yeah,
the other piece with High Noon, which you talked about in terms of the blacklisting, which he talked extensively about, was how his own uncle, who was a composer and was a musician, was essentially, blacklisted, called a commie. And, he was a Jewish New Yorker. And like they basically went after him. And his kind of political ethos was forged, as he says, in that moment. And so this film, to your point, really takes on a lot of like, and is this a reaction to Reagan 80s? Like, is this a reaction to the rising corporate state that we see throughout the 80s? Like, there are some questions that, might be worth discussing, but I really liked his interview.
you know, an interesting piece of you know, so westerns play a certain role, right, in the American imagination and film history. And a piece of what westerns have always done is ask this question of what do we become when the social order decays, right? So you know, if you remove the social order, if you remove the social order that sort of keeps us in check, right? What do we become? What do we find out about ourselves? What do we find out about the social order? And so the piece that, you know, he comes and he wants to pitch this western, as you say, and he pitches it, and people say you can't.
Mhm.
Nobody's westerns now. And but he says, you know, he's seen Star Wars, obviously, and Star Wars to him is a western, right? And he's like, okay, so this is maybe how I'll go about it. Um, but yeah, the idea of this is very much the Western thing, that the social fabric, the community of the people here has dissipated, and what's left is the corporation, right? Like the end of it, there's no community in this place other than the corporation, right? You know, and so you end up with this decaying social order, and then everything sort of follows from that. There's other pieces in the extras, and it's one of the best, it's one of the best commentary tracks that
Yeah.
I've listened to. If you listen to the commentary track, there's also a half an hour interview, like you say. There's a half an hour interview that talks about this movie and what brought him to it. You learn all sorts of things about it. Well, I mean, one of the things is like little bits. The it's who is this? Stephen Goldsmith that does the Jerry Goldsmith that does the soundtrack to this, and it's a beautiful soundtrack. Goldsmith did um, the Alien soundtrack. He did he did Air Force One soundtrack. He's a
Put a pin in
famous,
that.
you know, you know, and it's a beautiful soundtrack, beautifully rendered on the disc. And he asked he asked Hyams, like, what do you want me to add to your movie? The music always adds something. You want like mood? Do you want energy? Do you want and Hyams says 40 IQ points. Which I thought was just brilliant, because that's what it does, right? If you think about this movie and you think about this with, I mean, I love The Thing, but if you think about it with The Thing, just some sort of like little synthy thing behind it, or something like that, or if you think about it with something that's less orchestral, you know, I think you'd have a different experience of this movie. But
Did you
just a
just call the
beautiful piece.
thing music a little synthy thing behind it?
Well, no, no. Look, the Thing music is brilliant.
It's
It's
great.
brilliant. It's brilliant in its simplicity. It does exactly what it needs to do. Like, I could actually talk about how much I love that. But it's also, it's not like it's classing the thing up. Do you see what I'm saying?
Exactly, I do.
Like there's a way in which there's a way in which this Goldsmith soundtrack classes it up. And you're hearing it, by the way. This was originally released on in stereo. Just that was what was released at the time. Um, and it's been remastered on the disc. It's been remastered into a 5.1
Yeah.
surround track, and I thought it was well done. I mean, it's not, there's nothing in it that's going to sort of grab you. I mean, but it is very much presents a soundscape. And I tried listening to it on the stereo too, and the stereo is I imagine is somewhat better than the original stereo. If you've listened to, if you listen to 70s movies, you know that back in the 70s when they were doing the stereo, if you get something that's not remastered, the speakers in the 70s theaters had something called Academy roll off. There's Academy roll off on the tracks, because the speakers in the theaters couldn't handle bass very well, right? And so they didn't want to put out a soundtrack that in a newer theater you had speaker capabilities and it worked great, but in an older theater, like, was really taxing those speakers. And so you get these unremastered 70s movies, and if you've had this experience of watching a 70s movie and you're like, the sound sounds so thin, right? It part of that is the original tracks could they again, they had this thing called the Academy roll off, where where they really tried to make sure they were not taxing the bass. In the 70s, two things are happening with sound. One is that they're doing a lot more on location sound versus in studio. So you're struggling with that. You've got the outdoor sound. And then the second thing is you're still trying to run it through these stereo speakers in every theater, and the two things don't always mix. So this has remastered sound. It really changes, I think, your experience of it. If you've seen this, like, again, like I said, if you saw this on UHF or on Tubi somewhere, your experience of this is going to be very different than this. And obviously, this isn't just Outland. This is so many 70s movies. I think people have um, just have a very just a little bit of a detached experience with them because things like the sound and also the unremastered prints often have a very thin experience, and this is very rich.
So do you think, I mean, is it your take that these remixes and these kind of um, later releases, 4K, etc., really up the game for a lot of these movies?
In the biggest thing with this one, and again, not to completely geek out on the 4K. So Hyams is known for starting out filming relatively normal, like if you look at Capricorn One, and then he gets very attached to filming very dark, and so with he's filming with a lot of things. A lot of these scenes are very noir and very daring in the level of dark he's willing to experiment with. He has one scene where he that is, a lot of scenes where you'll see half of the screen will be almost completely black, and you'll see half of Sean Connery's face, coming out here and so forth. Very noir sort of feel. Um, and here's the problem with streaming versions of this. Here's the problem with not seeing this either on the original 35 millimeter print or seeing it. A Blu-ray of this might have been fine too, but seeing it on a DVD or something like that is when you're filming that dark, right? You have all this grain in the darkness, right? And that grain is just noise, right? And the compression algorithms that people use to stream, the compression algorithms they use to put it on a DVD, what does it have to do? It has to pound out some of that grain. But with a very dark scene like that, some of that grain is information. Some of that grain is giving hints as to what's there, even if it's very dark.
Yeah.
And so it ends up just obliterating it, and you end up being able to see nothing. And so in this one, like even in the dark scene, some of that grain is like these rich pops of little of blue, or like these. It's a very colorful movie in this weird sort of way, and you lose all of that. The compression algorithms just hammer that. Now Hyams goes on later, and the joke about Hyams is, he this is Hyams really at that perfect middle. He's learned how to film using dark, but he's not all the way to End of Days, which is a movie where you can see nothing. For like I don't even know why they bothered to get Schwarzenegger in there. You couldn't, like, who would know if it was someone different? That movie is absolutely black, right? But here he's hit that perfect balance where he's being very daring with the lighting here, and it's something that if you see it not on a 4K, not on a Blu-ray. I mean, I assume a Blu-ray would be able to capture this. Um, it's just gonna squash all of that little sense of detail that you're getting in the shadows there, and your experience is going to be different. So this here is like if you want to if you're tuning in this for the technical details, your average scene in this is about 90 megabits a second in terms of the compression, which is very high. That's sort of a boutique release. If you get something from Kino Lorber or something like that, you kind of got to get that. It's a single disc, right? It's a single disc, so they do put the extras on the disc.
With the Con Am on the disc, which is
With
so
the Con
great.
Am, it's beautiful.
It's
They do put
gorgeous.
the extras on the disc, but it is if you look on the back here, I don't know if people know this, but you can actually find out if you have a double or triple layer 4K. Well, 4K is almost always going to be triple layer, but actually that's not true. Like some of the studio releases are double layer, but it's a triple layer. You can see that because if you look at the center rings, you'll see three little rings with different barcodes on them. That's a triple layer 4K release, and that's giving you about 100 gigabytes of space, so that you don't have to compress. You don't have to compress that video, and you can still get some extras on there. But it's an incredibly it's just a different experience watching this. Like if you've seen it anywhere streaming, you probably haven't seen this film.
I'm glad to hear that you like this, because I was like, I was watching it while you reached out about this. And I'm like, I think this is a good one. I think Mike will appreciate it. So I am super glad to hear that. The other piece of extra that I really enjoyed on this, and I kind of geeked out on, is well, two pieces. When Hyams was talking about, and then they're related, Hyams is, Hyams kind of understands himself as, I'm not a great director,
Yeah,
I'm a good director, right? And I
yeah,
kind of like it because you can hear him kind of struggling with it in the
yeah.
interview, which I really love because he's
And he's
being,
known for coming in cheap, right? Like he's the director. He's the director that can take 20 million and make it look like 80 million.
yeah.
That's why he's known as, right?
And to the point, right? So he gets a call after making this film, and he gets a call from Kubrick, who's there's no question if it's good or great. And so like he's
Yeah,
like playing fanboy in the interview, like Kubrick
yeah,
calls me, and Kubrick wanted to know about the particular scene in creating the scale of the elevator on this moon at the
yeah,
bottom and how they kind of zoomed out to give this sense of scale. And like, Kubrick knew there was a trick because he's the king of the optical
yeah,
trick, and
yeah.
he couldn't figure that one out. It was so good. So he called Hyams and he's like, how'd you guys do it? Right? Like what was your trick? Which I think is so cool to think how that's how directors think. Like,
Well, Hyams is known for this stuff. Hyams is known for figuring out little things that you can use to again to create a real sense of space. Like one of the things. So this is filmed at Pinewood Studio. So interesting. This
yeah.
is all filmed in England. An interesting connection there. That Pinewood Studio is also where they filmed a lot of the Bond movies. So Sean Connery roaming around there, feeling very at home. Um, but he mentions they had the people come over to see how the filming was going, and and they'd seen some dailies and things like that, and they came over and they looked at the set, and they're like, "This is it." Like you've got these scenes that feel like people are running through an entire moon colony, or at least like a series of bases on the moon. And you're in the space. You're just in a usual like sized warehouse, like studio warehouse, right? And so like king of coming up with all of these ways of creating senses of space is uses a technology called introvision to
Yeah.
do some in the camera matting,
Which I
and there's an
love.
interview with Eric.
There's a great documentary interview with the guy who did Introvision, and I love that one too because that guy is kind of like, yeah, it was a technology we kind of figured out, and the guy who owned the company, and like you start to see like it all seems so real, right? Like this like
Yeah,
spin-off, technology, like entrepreneurs for film. And this one
yeah,
was basically trying to merge front projection with various actors in the miniatures to make it look, for example, the scale was moon-like, and it worked quite well.
yeah. No, one of the things that Hyam says about this stuff is that if you go in for a day of filming and you come out and nothing has surprised you, that's a bad day, right? That what he loves is you hit a problem, and then you come up with a solution that is just unexpected, and so whether that's filming the scale models, and whether that's how to show the scale of an elevator, whether that's how to take what I think is probably only 3 corridors that they've built and try to turn that into running miles around a moon base at the end, without people realizing they're in the same 3 corridors every time. Those are the sorts of things that he loves, and then the acting too. And we haven't talked too much about the acting. We're kind of all over. This is our first one, but
Yeah, exactly.
the acting too is he is a person who there's directors that have a lot of respect for actors, and there's directors that don't, right? Hitchcock famously a director that did not, right? Just sit there, say your thing. I'll make it look like you got to feel. Um, Hyams is not that direct. Hyams is very appreciative of his actors. Talks at length about Sean Connery and in all of the actors there. And one of the things that he talks about with his actors is how much he really he really loves seeing the choices that they make that were unexpected to him. That he's got the script, he thinks he knows how it has to go. And when he talks about that Sean Connery speech, in just the way that Sean Connery pauses in certain places, the cadence, right? Um, just having that speech of Sean Connery's about he doesn't want to be a cog in this rotten little machine. Having it just the pace and tone of it being so calm it just so like he's not angry. He's maybe a little bit like he's maybe a little bit resigned, you know. But he's solid, you know.
Yeah.
And so you see that too with a lot of the things on the extras when he's talking about the actors and the choices that they make. Just a real lot of appreciation from him working with these people. And he says repeatedly, "Look, you choose the best actors you can afford. You let them do their work."
Yeah.
And that's the case here. And everybody is on their A game here, whether it's Peter Boyle, whether it's Sternhagen, whether it's Sean Connery. I'm forgetting his wife's name, but in the film, the wife's the actress that plays her. But everybody's on their A game.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also interesting. I mean, Hyams' interview was far ranging, but also insightful. And when he's talking about the actors, he's like, also, I'm coming to work with Sean Connery, and that's not nothing. Like, there's a certain
Yeah,
amount of intimidation and his space in there. And like, you're going to want to make sure that he
well,
likes what you're doing. And he talks about that extensively.
there's a great little story on there where he's talking about how so there's a controversy about this film in the film world, right? Like just the union part of the film world. At that time, you weren't allowed to be a director, like the director of the film and the director of photography, like the cinematographer, right? Weren't allowed to be both. You had to have two different people because of union rules. He likes doing his own cinematography, right? He doesn't like being told how to film. He likes being the director and the cinematographer. And so he actually had a guy, like Goldblatt, uh, come on as the DP, as the director of photography, but really handle the model sets and things like that. Anyway, huge controversy about this, but he tells Sean Connery that he's going to be doing the cinematography too. And Sean Connery kind of doesn't get it, right? So he's there the first. And Sean Connery apparently keeps calling him boy. He's like, Sean Connery is like, what you got there, boy? And he's kind of like not feeling. And it's Sean Connery. It's like, and that guy arches an eyebrow, it can pummel you through a wall, And so he says this kept going on. Sean Connery just kind of like looking at him like this guy does not. What do I got myself into? This guy does not do what he's doing. And so this is partly about the way he films dark too. Sean Connery. There's a scene where Sean Connery comes out of a door. He's lit from the side, and Sean Connery comes out, and half of his face is lit. And so and he says dramatic Sean Connery things. And so Hyams is sitting there, and he's got a little 20-watt bulb on just a wire, right? And he's holding this 20-watt bulb on the wire. He's like, and come forward to your mark when you say that. And Sean Connery is like, what are you doing with that bulb, boy? And he says, here's what's going to happen. You're going to come, and as you come forward, this bulb, I'm going to be shining it, and it's going to just put half your face will be lit. The dark half will be almost entirely black, but there's going to be a little pinprick of light in your eye from this 20-watt bulb I'm holding. And so Sean Connery does that. And then the next day, Sean Connery comes and comes up to him and says, I want to see the dailies. And he's like, oh, yeah, we show the dailies at lunch and so forth. You'll be able to see the dailies. He's like, no, I want to see the dailies now. Show me the dailies now. So they go and they watch the dailies, and he says, I want to see that scene. And so he plays the scene. And luckily for him, Sean Connery comes forward, brilliantly lit scene, half in dark. And just as he comes to his mark, tiny pinprick of light in that eye, just giving a little detail to that eye. And Sean Connery doesn't say anything, but from that point forward, he doesn't call him boy anymore.
That's right.
So
It's interesting, right? Like that moment where you win in the film and then everyone's
yeah,
behind you and it's going to be a success. And you've
yeah,
probably
yeah,
seen a million films where you're probably like, yeah, it didn't work out that well between the actors and the directors,
yeah.
and you can see it in the film. This is not one of them, right? And
No.
I enjoy this film tremendously. I enjoyed the 4K version. To some of the things you're talking about, like this idea of him being kind of like a DIY, doing more with less. I love that
Yeah,
kind of director. Mario Bava, who's one of my favorite, is like the Italian equivalent of that. He's like the low rent Hitchcock in Italy in that regard, the way he deals with visuals. Um,
yeah.
but when you talk about the kind of lighting and you talk about this noir sense of sci-fi. So we talked about the Western, but I really like what you're talking about with noir. And one of those examples is when they're in that bar and they
Hmm.
have this bar. It's almost something like out of Blade Runner, a little bit out of Empire Strikes Back, which is still not yet released. Like, but
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is this real kind of aesthetic that I think Hyams, who doesn't really get much credit for, is contributing to that whole noir sci-fi reality that kind of becomes a staple of the 80s. And this
Well, you know,
film that gets
he kind
forgotten, but it's crucial, I think.
he kind of refines. So the interesting thing about Hyams in the relation, so much of this is Alien, right? So
So
much of
much.
this is Alien,
Yeah.
right? Like even right down to the beginning. Like I forget how many statistics we get at the beginning. There's like 10 pages of statistics we got to read about this moon colony, right? But very Alien, right? Very Alien
Totally.
with giving us this. So much of it is Alien, but at the same time, it's it's the pieces of Alien that I think people didn't notice or value quite as much, if that makes sense. So Alien, famously Alien pitched as, you know, Jaws in space, right? And then, in the hands of Scott, becomes, a sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in space. But that's what people notice. That's sort of your pitch line, right? And that is really what it is, right? Um, Hyams really has an eye for what is that world, right? What does that world look like? What does the rest of that world look like? What does that and it's not officially part of the alien thing, but I think it's sort of like in some ways it's similar in some ways it's similar to Ridley Scott, who sees Star Wars, and everybody else is looking at the Death Star and like these broad spacescapes and so forth, and he's like, you know, I really like the way the Millennium Falcon's all beat up. Like that's interesting. That's interesting. That's what space probably looks like.
Yep.
And Hyams is that sort of person too. He's looking at Alien, and he's saying, okay, yeah, sure, Jaws in space, the monster, all of this stuff, all that is great, but like, this ship is obviously like there's a mining colony, right? That this ship is related to. Um, this world has a certain like these characters go to, like, to your point, these characters go to some sort of bar and nightlife.
Yep.
What does that look like? And he's I think he's, like you said, he's very conscious. He's not Ridley Scott or Steven Spielberg, but he is a person, I think, that has looked at those films and been like, here's the thing that people aren't here's the thing that people aren't fully getting as the value of that film. And in this case, he's very much extending that.
Yeah, and he populates it. Like so much of Alien, it's
Populates it.
abandoned,
Yeah.
right? Like this is a
Yeah.
populated space when they're in the locker rooms, when they're doing their work, when the guy is, losing it, but he's in some sort of a bedroom with a prostitute. Like these are populated spaces, and like you said, this very simplified set really creates a pretty sophisticated world. And
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that the ability to do that. Like that's the magic of film, but that's also the sign of of a craftsman, of a director. And I kind of really felt for Himes like after that
Yeah.
interview. I was like, I'm rooting for you, man. Spielberg wasn't
Yeah.
all great.
I hope he gets more credit for what he did. Like I said, I don't think that he's an innovator, but I think he's a distiller, and I
Yeah.
think he distilled something here. And yes, Alien changed the face of sci-fi. Absolutely. If you're gonna, even more than Star Wars, right? Star Wars changed the face of fantasy, right?
Yeah.
But Alien changed the face of sci-fi. And that's true. But I think you also have to look at film history, and you have to say, there's the people that are maybe doing the innovation, but there's also these people along the way that are the people that key into, hey, here's a piece of how you extend that. Here's a piece that people are missing, and he's distilling that.
Yeah.
And I think that there were an awful lot of people that saw Alien They got certain things out of Alien. I think when they saw Outland, that they understood. Like if you were seeing Alien, then you might think, "Oh, well, this is Alien. This is a film." You know, even before the sequel and whatever, you're just like, so the Alien is a sort of Alien is a film. It's a sort of film, right? Um, Hyams is like, no, screw that. Alien is a genre,
Yeah.
right? Alien is a genre of film, and we can do a genre of film. And there's sort of a famous thing about the leaders and the first follower, right? In the first follower is what kind of creates the crowd, not the leader. The leader creates the opportunity for the crowd. The first follower shows you, hey man, this is something we can all do. This is something we can all join in.
Yeah.
And I think Hyams doesn't get credit for doing that. I certainly never understood that piece, but I hope people do.
Yeah. I
You
agree.
want to do my stupid questions now? I have some stupid questions.
Yeah, please. Let's do it.
I'm ripping off of a format that's popular in many film podcasts. My first stupid question for you, Jim, is what is the role in this film that Philip Seymour Hoffman could have played?
He would have been a good Peter Boyle,
I
right?
think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Like I think his tone, his way of being.
So take Freddie from
Yep.
take Freddie from the one with Dickie, the one that was written. He comes to Rome. He's getting all, what is it called? The Talented Mr. Ripley. So take
Yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman as that kind of
Yep.
really obnoxious Freddie, and then put him as Peter Boyle. So he's like a
Yeah.
corporate Freddie who's telling Sean Connery, get with the program, man. Like, you're just this low-life cop. Get in line or we will have you removed. So does that work?
I absolutely agree. I don't think he would have been a great Dr. Lazarus. Dr. Lazarus originally written as a male role and then switched, which is something I guess that Hyams has done before. Is he likes writing roles for men and then switching them to women, and you kind of see that. But I think definitely Philip Seymour Hoffman definitely playing Boyle.
Boom.
Lead role, Tom Hanks or Tom Cruise? If you had to shove somebody in that role, would be Tom Hanks or Tom Cruise?
That's a good question. Tom Cruise,
It's
not
Tom
Tom
Cruise,
Hanks.
but by a hair, I think.
Yeah,
I'll tell you why. I don't think Tom Cruise. I don't know if Tom Cruise has. Am I gonna believe Tom Cruise in the racquetball court?
probably, yeah.
That's such a Tom Hanks speech,
Yeah,
right? But
but
for the
Tom Hanks
most of
has
it,
no humor. There's no humor in this, really.
yeah,
Lazarus is
that's true.
humor. And Tom Hanks, early on in the 80s,
Yeah,
I mean, Tom Cruise, who I love, is always humorless, kind of. So he can get away
yeah,
with it. Whereas Hanks, at this point, would
yeah,
have to be funny.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this film
Um,
wouldn't benefit from his humor.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Third question: what is the most 1981 thing about this film?
The fact that they have shotguns.
Shotguns in space. I think
That's
shotguns in space is
that for me
definitely
is
is
it.
definitely it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's strong contender.
it was so hard for
Um,
me to come off of like Star Wars and Alien, which,
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
in line with that. And then you're like, wait, is
I
this
think he just
science
thought that
fiction? Because they have
he's buying the
shotguns.
shotguns for his western, and he's like, we just got to use the shotguns.
It's true. It's like that. And I
You know?
wonder if he was, to your point, like he was maybe intentionally being anachronistic
Yeah.
for those in the know to say, this is really a Western. And like,
They don't even have a line. They don't even have a line to sort of explain it. Sometimes you use shotguns in space, and you'll be like, "Oh, the reason we can do this is this, right?" We won't depressurize because but no, no.
no, no
And
line.
when the hired gunmen come, like they're like, "Oh, we're bringing shotguns."
Exactly.
like,
It's awesome. Everybody's got a shotgun in space.
what is what character or subplot gets the 6-episode spin-off Netflix series?
Good question. Wow. I would give it to
Is it?
Lazarus.
I thought Lazarus, and then I thought, what about a prequel with Boyle at the center?
Oh, I
Well,
like
not
that.
Boyle, but yeah, you know what you do? You do something 6 episodes,
Yeah.
something that has that world before. Like what happened before?
I love
Maybe
his
that.
character. So I
You
do.
know,
I would go with that. Or what happened before with Sean Connery. Like
or what happened before with Sean Connery? Yeah, yeah,
that's a
yeah,
good
yeah,
one actually. If
yeah,
I
yeah,
were doing that, like any one of those three characters, all of which are so strong,
yeah.
I would be compelled to watch.
I think you could have a backstory for each.
Yeah, that would be a
Um,
good way to do it. Like cut
yeah,
between them and then finally they meet in the movie.
yeah. And final thing, like absurdly stupid hot take. Did we waste Sean Connery in action films? And here's why I want to say is like I'm watching this, like he has such a depth, and he's kind of like in that Clint Eastwood space with this, where Clint Eastwood has such an acting depth. He knows the lens of the camera so well. He can portray like just what I Nicole and I jokingly call face acting. Like some people have it where just tiny little changes in their face, you can show the progression of emotion, like any emotion you want, progressive emotion without saying a word. Absolutely has that, and yet most of his roles are him running around.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, some not.
He's always like a
Man with
submarine captain or something like that, right?
yeah, yeah. It's always something like that. And I wonder, like, was there any ability, like, could you have put him in, I mean, he can't have a role, like, he can't be a Nicholson, but like, Nicholson had a bunch of roles that were sort of these hyped up, energetic roles, and also had a bunch of roles that showed a sort of a depth and so forth. I don't know. Was there another route for Sean Connery there? I was
That's a
just
good question.
surprised to be looking at Sean Connery and like being like, no, this guy has such a depth of feeling to him.
I mean, this is, I was never a huge Sean Connery fan, but rewatching this and seeing some other stuff he did, like going back to some of the Bonds, which, um, you know, my special lady friend loves, I, I kind of, I'm finding a newfound respect for him, but I think part of why I don't like Connery is think about all his other movies in the 80s. They're
Yeah,
all pretty forgettable. This might be
yeah,
arguably one of his best, and it's for many a throwaway.
yeah. No, it's true. Like, I mean, Zardoz. Like, what was that all about? You know, like
Yeah,
what was? I mean, I
Stardust.
understand. I understand. You want people's memory of you as Bond to be wiped out because you want to start fresh. But running around for an hour and a half in a diaper, is not.
A
I mean, I did
red
wipe people's
diaper.
memory of Sean Connery. I think it was a complete memory wipe, but not in the way intended. Um, yeah, what else? I mean, Manor would be king.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, but I feel like there might have been a missed opportunity. I feel like he may have struggled after Bond for too long. And he could have gone a different direction here. I was surprised. I was surprised by his acting. I did note that he did get nominated for some Saturn Award or something like that.
I mean,
But um,
he co-
Indiana Jones wiped it that year.
he comes up in like, obviously he comes up in Untouchables would be his big movie
Yeah,
of
that's
the
true.
80s. That
Yep.
would be the one where he was great in Untouchables and that was not one I disliked. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there was a lot of crap in the 80s in general. And,
Yeah.
revisiting this, I think there's something to be said for your question around like, could have he been more of a cerebral actor from the 80s that maybe were in more kind of,
Yeah.
rarefied or indie films or whatever? Like, I don't know if he would be able to, hearing him and Hyams go at it, I don't know if he'd be able to tolerate indie
Yeah, be able to
films.
work, be able to talk. Like you don't think that if he's working with Philip Thomas Anderson that they're gonna get along?
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Like you hear about Gene Hackman after he died, right? Like he was a
Yeah,
real like him and Wes Anderson didn't get along, and he's like, I don't know what the
yeah,
hell
yeah,
you're doing with this film, but you look back on it, and he's the best
yeah.
thing about the Royal Tenenbaums. So
It is a really interesting thing. Like what happens to a world where you get sort of a Philip Thomas Anderson, or you get someone that the way that you do have some of these you have some of these directors that sort of reach in, and Tarantino famous for it, right? Like seeing the character in the seeing understanding, like Tarantino, one of Tarantino's great talents has always been looking at an actor and understanding, here is what people are not tapping into about that
Yeah,
actor
totally.
that I can tap into, right? And you wonder if someone had kind of Tarantino'd um, Connery in the 80s, and being able to say, here's the thing that people are not tapping into about Connery. Here's how we tap into it. And you might have had a different route for him. I would have been really It would have been really interesting
That's a good
to
call.
see that.
Yeah,
You
that's a
know.
good call. And you know what, Mike? Those were great questions.
Okay,
No, they
we'll
were.
get better at these questions later.
They
We'll
were
get better at
good.
these
They were
questions.
fun.
Yeah. All right. All right. I think that's about it. We did fail to do one thing, Jim, which is to say it actually comes
I'm a little. Oh, okay. So let me see. Hold on.
with a poster.
Which is awesome because not only is it like shotguns in space, but they
Yeah,
double down on shotguns in space even in the poster.
even in the poster. Yeah,
Yes, I
on Jupiter's moon, he's the only law.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
true. They have this. They have a lot. Like I got, another I get some DVDs with like just an insert and it's almost like a postcard
yeah,
and I'm like that sucks. This has like
yeah,
3 booklets,
yeah.
right?
Is
And
this your only Arrow release? Like, I'm just
no, I
curious.
have
I've
I
never
have
done Arrow before.
I have like 30 or 40 of them.
Yeah,
I think they're my favorite because also the films they put out are kind of my favorite.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
really like the Arrow release. I also like the Shout releases.
yeah. Shout is good. Uh, Kino Lorber is like just happens to have a lot of stuff I
Yeah,
want,
me too.
and they're good. They're always good. They're good transfers, but you get the brown Kino Lorber disc, and maybe the brown Kino Lorber second disc. They're putting their money into redoing the sound, and that's great.
Yeah.
But like this was a little happy meal of
That is the perfect way to describe it. And I'm going to be in Portland in about 10 days. So or
oh
12 days. So I'm going to go back to Millennium and Music Millennium or whatever it's called and I am going to get
yeah,
more of them because they have a great collection there.
yeah. All right, I think it's about that time. Unless we got something else to wrap up here.
Mike, this was a blast. Thank you for coming
This
up
was
with the
fun.
idea. It was awesome hearing you talk about the film and I look forward to
Yeah,
doing more.
yeah. Sounds great.
All right,
All
man.
right.
Take care.
See you.